And joining us now is our guest, Piotr Kaczyński, expert in the European affairs from the Geremek Foundation. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So the list of topics is quite extensive, and indeed it actually reflects upon how the European Union needs to cover a great variety of issues. But let us begin with defense, security, and a related question of sanctions. A recent package has now been announced. Do you think the European Union is now on the right path when it comes to imposing sanctions on Russia in a way that will actually make an impact?
Well, on the one hand, the EU is clearly delivering when there were a lot of comments saying, oh, there's a paralysis coming, there's all those right-wing governments. Look, we have more and more different governments coming into the EU and different prime ministers or ministers of all sorts, and yet the EU goes in one specific direction. Actually, those developments that we have been seeing with the appointment of Mark Rutte, you just talked about it, and at NATO, and now probably the new appointments of top jobs in Brussels today are symbols that EU holds the ground and is as committed as ever in that big confrontation that is going on in the east between Ukraine and invading Russia. So this is a massive sign of relief. At the same time, whether this is the right approach and whether it will deliver the goods, well, we are squeezing, and whether this produces, hopefully, an outcome that we desire is a question without a clear answer. But definitely, it is getting us there. So a Ukrainian win, if you like, is a policy that will require all kinds of answers and all kinds of approaches and policies to be used at the same time, and sanctions is definitely one of them.
Now, war in Ukraine is one of the elements that now influences EU's economy, and now what it seems like that the EU aims to balance economic recovery with now inflation control, and this of course involves discussions on monetary policy, fiscal discipline and structural reforms to ensure a long-term economic stability. But how can EU really balance it?
Again, a question without a big answer for time being, because we need to see what the leaders are going to provide on this matter. What we have seen over a couple of weeks is that the fiscal rules have been fully in place, reintroduced after this COVID break that we have seen, and a much more relaxed policy when it comes to the spending over recent years. At the same time, the security situation is calling for extra solutions or extra innovative approach. And what kind of approach will we have? Will there be a new defense spending, or will we have any decisions related to different treating of defense spending in measuring the budgetary deficits? All those questions are on the table, and for the moment, there's little coming out from those big kind of, if you like, budgetary questions. But they are very closely linked to the defense situation, to the fiscal situation in member states. As you mentioned, economies on the line, the stability is on the line of European economies, and clearly here the outgoing European Commission has been quite strict with its approach, issuing a number of member states that they need to get their deficits in order.
Do you think that this time, given that there are so many crises that need to be managed, like the war in Ukraine, the economic situation and so on, does it mean that ambitious institutional reforms are going to be postponed? In particular, I'm talking about, for example, the voting system. We sometimes think, okay, the European Union would need to be more streamlined in this decision-making process. Like when we look at Hungary trying to block certain decisions, we say, well, perhaps majority voting. But then again, new countries which might want to join the European Union, would they be on board with that? What direction do you think is this debate going to take?
Again, a question without a big answer for time being, because we need to see what the leaders are going to provide on this matter. What we have seen over a couple of weeks is that the fiscal rules have been fully in place, reintroduced after this COVID break that we have seen, and a much more relaxed policy when it comes to the spending over recent years. At the same time, Again, a great question without a clear answer. Clearly, for time being, there's no consensus in the European Council related to treaty change. There were some leaders who were pushing for it exactly for the reasons you just mentioned. And then there were those other leaders who were saying, actually, we don't need to open the Pandora's box today. That would be the treaty change. But on the question of enlargement, also very important developments earlier this week that were a little bit escaping this kind of big picture perspective, but the stepping up of Montenegro, stepping up of that country in the accession negotiations is very important. This is the country that is right now a front runner. There is a real life chance for Montenegro to join the EU by 2028. And if Montenegro is going to achieve the membership status in the European Union within this new term that is starting of the Parliament of the European Commission, this will be a major breakthrough for everyone. It's like a litmus test. If Montenegro can do it, then the old policy of non-enlargement is gone for good. And then we can foresee next enlargements, the real next enlargements happening for much bigger countries, Ukraine post-war, Moldova post-Transnistria question, and all the other Balkan countries as well. And whether in that process we are going to have environment situation which will allow for a treaty change that probably is necessary, and definitely a lot of people are asking for it, then it's an open question. But I do not see that there will be an EU of 30 plus countries with the same treaty system as we have today. Legally, it is doable to solve it in all various ways, but some of those questions are simply without clear answers as of today.
So the European Union constantly evolving and constantly adapting. Piotr Kaczyński was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.